I'm finally back with an update on my Nova project. Yes, I know it's been a while, but the rolling chassis is pretty much done now. Honestly, it's been a lot of one step forward and two steps back, and dealing with junk parts, even though they're brand new, has been one big part of the problem. Although none of the parts in this segment really caused me a lot of grief. The other issue is me. Changing my ideas up in midstream has been one thing, and mission creep and trying to stop mission creep has been another. And what's that old saying about no job is worth doing unless you can do it twice? Well, it pretty much describes me in this project. For a closer look, check out the accompanying slideshow. I hope you dig it.
First up is the fuel system. A lot of my inspiration came from some folks who run cars at stock appearing drags. The few that will actually talk mention they use Holley Hydramat. Hydramat wicks the fuel in a gas tank or fuel cell. Effectively, any area where Holley Hydramat comes in contact with the fuel, it will draw in that fuel. And you can get Hydramat in a pretty big size too. Fair enough, but how on earth do you get the Hydramat in the tank? Simple. Cut a big hole in it. I used a 4500 Dominator base gasket as the template and then sliced a hole in a flat spot in the top of the tank. I made a cover plate for it out of aluminum. Before the Hydramat was installed in the tank, I set the tank up to accept 3 stainless steel bulkhead fittings, one number 10 and 2 number 8s. The number 10 fitting is for fuel delivery, while the number 8 is for fuel return and the other number 8 is for the vent line. I had bulkhead fittings TIG welded and then proceeded to install the Hydramat. There are a couple of ways to locate the Hydramat inside. I chose to use 4 rare earth magnets on each corner. You have to be careful with them because they're tenacious. I taped up the hole in the tank so a sharp edge wouldn't slice me or the Hydramat. Rolled it up and inserted it through the hole. The next issue is figuring out how to plumb the thing internally. There aren't a lot of hoses out there that are fuel safe, as in fuel immersion safe. Compounding the problem is the fact that it isn't easy to get a large number 10 or number 5/8 inch fuel safe hose. After a lot of research, I found that Tygon tubing will work. It's compatible with most fuels, including those with alcohol as part of their content. It resists swelling and hardening, remains somewhat pliable, and maintains an airtight seal under all sorts of temperature extremes. It's stiff enough that it will resist collapsing, but it may eventually need servicing replacement. Because of all of this, I figured it was best to compromise. By the way, you've probably seen the semi-clear yellowish fuel line fitted on numerous small engines. In order to hook up the Tygon tubing to the bulkhead fitting and the Hydramat, I used a mix of Earl's fittings. The idea was to use stainless steel hose clamps to attach the hose to respective fitting nipples. It all went well until I discovered most auto parts store hose clamps are made in China junk. There is a solution though. I ordered a couple of boxes of made in the USA Breeze hose clamps. Breeze services the aircraft industry and the clamps are very good. If you can't find them, McMaster Car stocks them. For the internal vent, I simply used a 45°-8 AN hose and with just a nipple in use and angled it upward toward the top of the tank. A number 8 AN hose attaches to the bulkhead fitting at the tank on the outside, and I routed it to a mounting plate that I made at the top of the frame rail. At that point, there's a breather mounted to the hose. Installed my homemade cover plate with the gasket and installed the sending unit to the top of the tank, and I also had sliced off the pickup on the sender and plugged it top and bottom. The tank was installed with fresh mounting hardware, a fab little bracket to secure the vent line to the top right of the rear subframe, and then basically installed a new cap at the back end. It's a tight-fitting, non-vented job. That's important because you really don't want gas pouring out the back of the tank upon acceleration. As you can see, if you look under the car from the back, none of the fuel system is visible. Next up, I mounted a Holley fuel filter on the passenger side floor pan inside the rocker panel and frame connector. This keeps it out of the way and still allows for reasonable access to service the filter. The number 10 line runs from the bulkhead fitting to the filter. From the filter forward, the fuel lines run alongside the frame connector and then up over the passenger side inner fender to an L-shaped bulkhead plate I built from aluminum. That plate is designed to accept 2 bulkhead fittings, one for the pressure line and one for the return. The return line is number 8 AN and runs back to the bulkhead fitting welded to the tank. With the battery tray installed, you can see the setup is almost invisible. The fuel feed line will go right into a super high volume block mounted mechanical fuel pump. Not shown, but in the plan, is to use an Enderley mechanical fuel injection bypass valve at the carburetor. I can shim it to 7 psi or so, and that allows the system to return excess fuel back to the tank without using a conventional fuel pressure regulator. I changed my mind on one thing on the car, and that was the rear shock orientation. They were initially mounted upside down with the body of the shock mounted up inside the OEM wheel housing. It was an okay idea, but the compression adjuster knob came perilously close to the tire sidewall once I got the new wheels and tires installed. Plus, several racers told me there's a chance the shocks will leak upside down. The fix was pretty simple. Press out both spherical bearings on either end of the shock and swap them around. That allows the shock to be mounted right side up. The only other little thing I did was to test fit the reproduction stick shift transmission crossmember. I used the special long bolts from B&B Performance to install the crossmember. Well, it's no big deal. It makes it removing the engine and removing the transmission just a lot easier. I do have a little video that walks around the car in the shop. It starts at the back where you can see the 15x8 wheels I had built for the car. Those took forever, but that's another story. They're 5¼ inch backspace jobs to fit underneath the car. I had them painted to match and mounted a set of M&H Racemaster P275 drag radials on them. I know a radial will be a pain to hook with a stick, but I do have a little plan going in. And if that doesn't work, I'll just get another set of wheels built and then mount a set of bi-sply cheater slicks. The reason is I just prefer the way a car drives on the street with radials. Moving around the car, you can see I had the hood hinges, the hood latch and hood catch restored by Steve Gregory in California. Since these were done, Steve is retired, but the plating business is under new ownership. In general, I think the engine compartment really came out nice. On the interior side, everything is pretty much done too. The car is comfy and it feels good sitting behind the wheel. With that said, I think I can safely state the rolling chassis is done. Now I'm back to collecting parts for the engine and transmission. Watch for it. And hey, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Your subscriptions are what makes this channel happen.